Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome, and if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. Here we are, Merry Bobmas everyone, it's Merry Bobmas Part 3, the top 5 episodes of Season 3. Make sure to check out the Happy Hillo Days for all the top 5s of every season of King of the Hill pre-Hulu. These first seasons, I'm not gonna front or anything. It was hard coming up with these top 5s. There's a lot of bangers that I wanted to talk about. But that being said, what worked, what failed, what mutinies will be curtailed, it's time to get up and see the top 5 episodes of Season 3. Number 5, The Unnatural. Tina gets addicted to espresso, and Gene is not very good at baseball, so we get the Prince of Persuasion. What more could you ever want? I mean, I love this episode. It's another one I always go back to. And the fact that it's number 5 shows how strong Season 3 is. Like, I struggled to find a top 5, and I knew The Unnatural had to be on there somewhere. Because, I mean, like, Jason Mantzoukas, you have a Dragon Shumway, who, yeah, I don't love all of his characters, but when he was first being introduced a little bit more, you know, every season he would play a few more characters. I enjoyed our first few appearances, and I really love that this is the Prince of Persuasion as the Duke of Diamonds. I think that's great continuity. Plus, we get more regular-sized Rudy, who is a massive institution later on, and it's a fantastic finale that also works as a terrific standalone episode, and they're willing to take the Tina elements as weird and dark as they want to. And the conflict is very much Bob v. Linda, with Linda doing some pretty not cool things to make sure that Gene can go to baseball camp. Like, again, the family is flawed. This isn't like an episode of later King of the Hill where Hank just has an epiphany and then decides to tell people what the life lesson is. Instead, you actually have, you know, these people being horrible with each other sometimes, being a little self-obsessed, and then doing something weird. And that's the charm of it. As the show went on, it became much more, the weirdness makes us normal. But back then, the Belchers were just weird and odd in a good way. I love The Unnatural. Number 4, Broadcast Wagstaff School News. Again, another episode I always go back to, and it's just Tina v. Mad Pooper. And Tina wants to do this, you know, PBS, Nightline, investigative journalism. And the teacher's just like, nah, Tina, don't do that. Do something even weirder. Or, you know, hot or not. And here's the cool kids with the news. And I love Will Forte. Will Forte's great. I'm so glad he's in, you know, the rest of the show. But he's so good as the teacher in this episode. And honestly, it gives us a great appreciation of Zeke, which I've gone into. You have, again, Tina being a great character. Bob remembers how to make paella. Oh, and then the B story, where Gene thinks he's turning into Bob, so he becomes a little mini Bob. A little Bob boy. And that's delightful. Quit following me, but in the front. That's delightful. That's wonderful. That's what you expect from a show. Again, if you're gonna do these elements, if you have these tropes, this is how you do them. And I think having Tina not be just completely weird and out there and dating geese yet helped her as a character. If she was always like this going forward, I think she would have been a much better presented character. But honestly, this also shows off that Dan Mintz knows what he's doing with Tina. He hasn't really changed his inflections or his performance throughout the show. And when I went back to rewatch it for this, I actually kind of understood why he performed Tina the way he does. It works. It's monotone without being monotone. And the way he adds that inflection with like the ha, 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 it's very intentional. I don't know. I respected Dan Mintz's craft a lot more doing these top 5s when I could actually appreciate the work he put into Tina. Number 3, Bob Rest Ye Gentle Mannequins. I love Zach Galifianakis. Again, I'm a huge Tim and Eric fan. So if you give me Basket's own Zach Galifianakis as a brought-to-life mannequin, you can bet your bippy I am invested 10,000%.
And it's just the way he delivers all of his lines so flatly, and how John Benjamin is so exaggerated in response. It's such a perfect marriage for great, like, straight man comedy. You know, where you have Zach Galifianakis being this so confidently weird character, and then having Bob be the rational one, you know, for a time. We've seen him slip, and that's what was celebrated, but the thing that made early Bob's Burgers work was a lot of the time, Bob was the rational one. Bob was the one that thought logically. He's like, there is no way a mannequin could come to life, much less he's got a condo somewhere. Like, it works because Bob does not believe it could work, and yet he's still gonna go along with it, and I really appreciate that. It's a wonderful Christmas episode. It's got a ton of charm to it. And again, finding her in that shop with those fuzzy handcuffs, it makes sense for Bob's Burgers. If you're gonna do a story like that, how do you burgerfy it? And yeah, you get her from that kind of shop. That's what you do. They had such a perfect idea of what Bob's Burgers was early on, and it's so incredible seeing it in episodes like this.
Number 2, The Deepening.
I have watched this episode probably close to 30 times. I love The Deepening. The Deepening is everything I could ever possibly want it to be, and then some. You have everybody in the neighborhood involved. You have the giant shark. You have the Who Got Me right-handed scissors, which is so funny. I can't emphasize enough how clever some of just the one-liners in this show, much less this episode, are. This would have been a fantastic series finale. It's just that good. And I mean, even having that weird Teddy side plot where he blames the shark is great. That gives Teddy character. You have things with Mort, and again, it's much more Bob having to save the day after the kids ruin everything. And it's great to see Bob as the main character in Bob's Burgers. Again, it'll deviate, but for now, it's fun. And it's just, that's what The Deepening is. The Deepening is, if you have a Bayside town, of course they worked on some shark movie or some horror movie, and they're bringing an element to their tiny little town. And that works. Again, if you're going to do tropes, do them right. And having a Jaws knockoff come to town, which has a loose parody of Jaws 3D in it, in the 3 Deepening, that's great. That's creative. That's making references that you are not making just to be topical. And I can't tell you how refreshing that was to see in a sea, an absolute ocean of Family Guy clones. They were actually going for something where if you didn't get the reference, you still got a fun adventure. And if you did get the references, you get like, oh, okay. You're a little bit smarter than I gave you credit for. All right. What's up with that freaky head of yours?
And number 1, Mutiny on the Windbreaker.
Look, I gushed about it for like 6.5 hours in the Archer review. I love Jeffrey Tambor. So to have an episode with Jeffrey Tambor in it, of course, especially with John Benjamin, this is going to be one of my favorite episodes of the entire show, bar none. And it was. You also get Paul F. Tompkins. You get Dave Herman playing Duval, who is amazing. Oh, I'm sorry. I've been hogging the fan. Let me cool you off. Are you cool yet? It's just, I'm sorry. Like, Dave Herman does some voices that just, they tickle me, and they just make me giggle like a Tickle Me Elmo. I love them because they're so dumb, but he delivers them with such an earnesty that makes them stand out. I mean, it's, again, the episode hinges on Bob being the rational person freaking out because they're being held hostage. That's a completely understandable and rational reason to be afraid. And everybody else is just doing their own weird things. There's Gene being attracted to a puppet, Tina wanting a head massage. And it's just, I love it. I also love that Louise is just a dumb kid. Like, she's running around as a little clickety-clack Lady Deathstrike self, and she's not this criminal mastermind yet. She's weird, and she's got this dark energy to her, but she's not, like, criminal or anything like that. She's just gonna mess things up all the time, and that's fine. Kiki, the capybara. Who has a capybara? That's weird and wild and fun. I love it. I love Mutiny. It's easily one of my favorite episodes of all time. Chop, kick. Jeffrey Tambor was in Archer. Archer review available right now. Check it out. 6 hours. It's pretty Gucci. Anyway, there you go. That was my top 5 episodes of season 3. Anything you think I was right on? Wrong on? What are your top 5 episodes of season 3? Bottom 5 episodes of season 3? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, make sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends. We're out here. Season 3, I think, unequivocally, might actually be my favorite season of the whole show. It's like the perfect idea of what Bob's Burgers was initially supposed to be, and I'm really kind of about it. It did everything it needed to sell me on the show really being something special, and it gave me a ton to love. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the lecture hall. If you want to support the channel, consider joining our membership or Patreon programs today. $2 a month gets you special polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Yes, look at these champions and weep. Thank you all so much for watching. It means the absolute world. It has been an absolute delight making these for you. Remember to stay strong, keep fighting that good fight, and know that I believe in you. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one wave a-coming. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you next time in our next riveting Mary Bobmas segment.